Darwin, friends, family, Northern Territory people, could you please put your hands together and welcome Peter Wadawitz.
Talk about making old jokes. Firstly, I'd like to thank you very, very much for the opportunity to talk today. And I respect the elders that have looked after this land for so long, and I thank you very, very much for that care that we all must respect and put back. Now, how do I drive this forward? That'll be right. I was in China and I had to do a presentation. There would have been this many people in the room, and I was with the local government from South Australia, and I sat up there and I ready to go, and I pushed the button and they went, "Oh, sorry, it's crashed. Your PowerPoint's gone." Fortunately, because of age, I had my presentation on a piece of paper, so I just talked through it as I normally did before PowerPoint presentations were invented.
You're the most flexible person.
My grandson was filling out a form to get a job with me the other day, and it had on the word "print your name." And he said, "Pop, what's print mean? Normally I push the button print and it prints the thing, but how do you print your name?" I thought just how things are changing in life. Are we ready? No. Okay, well, I'm going to start off. Thanks very much for this opportunity. Look, the first thing I want to say is there's so many people in local government and governments and federal governments that say, where are the markets for compost? And I want to say, I don't know what rock they've been living under, because seriously, our soils around the world are completely stuffed. They're dead. And if we don't get this organic matter back and we don't get this microbiology alive in the soil, I don't know what we're going to do. I'm not anti-fertiliser, I'm not anti-chemical. I think we've overused everything. But certainly the lack of organic matter, the lack of carbon in our soils is just deteriorating everything. We've got projects at the moment, if we can get our PowerPoint working, in Qatar. We're just on our way to Indonesia. We're looking at a project in Malaysia because of what we're doing here in Australia, and we're leading the way. Not just our company, there's hundreds of composters and recyclers doing a brilliant job, and in some areas we're leading the world. So we've got to capitalise on that and keep working together to get better outcomes. As Con said earlier today, there's some big issues there, but I think if we come to these sorts of workshops, we can overcome a lot of those issues. And as I said to Leonie, look, I can't speak highly enough of actually how we've improved our communications since we've got together and said, what is the issue, and then how do we get the solution to it as an industry, as consumers. So we're going. Back. So yeah, we've been in business for a long time. Started as a kid with mum and dad making potting mixes because they had a wholesale nursery. So we've learnt to grow up in making soils and potting mixes and plants and all that sort of stuff all our life. Had a brother that was the president of the International Plant Propagator Society of the World. So we've had green fingers most of our life. I had the honour of getting an OAM for all the effort and work that I've done in the compost industries for over 40 odd years. I've chaired Compost Australia, I've chaired AORA, the composting industry, because I'm so passionate about the results that we get out in agriculture with compost. The business part of it's really important, but when you see what it does out in the soil and you see the microbiology and you see the health of a plant, that's what drives me every day to make sure that we get that right. And then we just happen to have a business that's got to make it do it. So we've got all these sites in in South Australia. So we've got at Dublin, Whyalla, McLaren Vale or Willunga, Langholms Creek. We've got a site in Qatar in the Middle East. We're working in South Africa, and we're working in Mauritius in some technology that I'll show you in a minute. That's one of our sites. That's our biggest site. We're doing over 120 odd thousand tonne a year at that site. We take everything from horses, cows, sheep, 10,000 tonne a year of dead chickens. We take pig hair. We get massive amount of pig hair. There's a factory up the road. And we take all the egg shells from the hatcheries from Ingham's. So our waste stream is just massive. We've got a depacking plant where we put glass and yogurts and milks through, and it basically squashes it, lets the liquid out. Then the glass falls to the bottom. We recycle that glass. We recycle the plastic. All that material, the cans, the Coke cans, and all the rest of it. You can't believe how much waste is in depackaging this product. Like it's bloody insane. Like, I make a lot of money out of this, but it's just dumb and it's just so wasteful. We've had 3, 4, 5 B doubles turn up in a day full of wine or beer that didn't sell, or they delisted it, or some stupid excuse. I reckon we should review the use-by dates urgently. They're used as a con to push product through shelves and depack it. I mean, it's wrong, just wasteful. I can't speak highly enough how disgraceful it is, and yet, I'm sorry, but we make good money out of it. But, as a society, it's just disgraceful. This is some of the machinery that we use, and we're partnered with Pete Wasley here in Darwin. Pete's got an operation in Katherine as well, and we're operating out on Shoal Bay, and we've done Palmerston. I'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. But Pete does all the grinding work, and these machines, he just told me he's looking at a new one the other day. The one down the bottom corner is $1.6 million. The fuel efficiencies of them are getting so much better. We've got one that uses about 150, 180 litres an hour. With the new ones, with the new cat loaders are coming out, grinders are coming out that 100 litres an hour. So efficiencies in engines are really improving. And we've got this piping system up the top right-hand corner, which is called a mobile aerated floor. We put that down, we put the compost on, we hook it into a blower system that works on a timer, and we actually pump oxygen into the system so that we can actually speed up the composting process. We can tarp that for control of odours and also water going in, etc. But I remind people, I've been in America where I've seen windrows, windrow after windrow after windrow, completely covered in snow, and you dig the snow off and you dig into the compost, and the compost is cooking away beautifully. So, nature at its best, making all that compost and working so well. This is our biggest nightmare. So I chair AORA, which is the compost industry of Australia. There's about 75, 80 composters around Australia, and we've just signed an agreement with the International Compost Association. So that's Europe, Italy, England, Ireland, America, Canada, and there's about 4 or 5 others. And we've just done a survey around Australia, and contamination is the biggest issue in the industry, but it's also the biggest issue around the world, contamination. This is the public putting the wrong thing in a green bin, and it's a major, major problem. And that kicks on all the way down the road. So we then get microplastics in there, we get all this other crap that's in there, that glass and all the rest of it. So it's a major problem. And I was just saying to, one of the ladies next to me that Holdfast Vale Council in Adelaide has just done a magnificent job communicating with the public, putting out those compostable bags, etc., in the kitchen caddies. And the uptake has been fantastic, but the contamination level's gone down like that because they've actually been told where it goes and how we use it and why it goes back to the farmer or to viticulture or horticulture. And so the contamination level. So if we bring in bins into Darwin, I recommend that we do a real education program beforehand and see whether we can keep this minimum quantity of contamination down. Because seriously, Jeffrey's, one of the composters out the north of Adelaide, has spent $7 million on a sorting system to try and get the contamination out. You know who pays for that, don't you? Local government and us ratepayers. So at the end of the day, it's costing us big time right around Australia. We've actually gone into granulating the product, which, as far as I can see, there's not too many around the world that's actually taken food waste and green organics and composted it fully down, and then we actually put it through a granulation plant. There's plenty of products that are out there that made into pellets. We also make pellets, but the granulation was designed to go down an air seeder. So we've did about 3,500 tonne this year out to farmers. Perfect timing, fertiliser prices going up, supply problems coming into fertiliser, and we bring this product out. So it was, the perfect storm. But in terms of getting carbon back into the soil for a broadacre farmer, they really didn't have anything before where they could do that. So we've developed this product. We can only make about 10,000 tonne a year out of this plant, and we've got a budget going in at the moment to try and build a 50,000 tonne plant. So I think that's where the future's going to be. There's probably 2 or 3 other companies around Australia looking at doing this similar process. So I think that's where it's going to be, particularly for grain growers, etc. So they can actually build that organic matter and that carbon in the soil. We do add SOA and we do add MAP and that to it, those that aren't organically certified. So this is the product, that's the branding that we've come out with. It seemed to work quite well, and we've seemed to be moving quite some good tonnage. We've also developed this pod system of an anaerobic digester. Anaerobic digesters have been around since Adam was a boy. But what we do is that sludge that comes out of the depackaged products is going into these balloons inside a container, and then we measure that and we build methane up, and then currently it's going in to run a generator for electricity. However, we've realised how much gas is needed to make our granule, and it's massive, and supply is a real problem getting gas delivered on time. They can be 3, 4, 5 days late because supply's drying up on gas, and also the prices have skyrocketed. So we've just put in for a grant with Greening Industries, which is part of the levy that they get the money for. So we've put in a grant to build 10 of these to actually produce enough gas to use it for our dryer. So hopefully if we get a grant from Greening Industries, we'll build 10 of these. I see this as a possibility, maybe down the road for remote areas, maybe some of the islands, etc., that you could be turning the food waste into this. Potentially the product that comes out the end could be a liquid fertiliser. So that has a potential. I mean, as I said, anaerobic digesters have been around since Adam was a boy, but I think we can develop these for communities as well, I think. So our biobin technology is an in-vessel composting system. In the bottom of the bin, it's got 4 aerated pipes. We blow air into it. We put a layer of carbon. We put food waste or dead chickens, put another layer of carbon, and we just keep doing that until the bin's full. That process speeds up the whole composting process. We suck out the air at the top, run it through a condenser and a biofilter, and then recirculate that air back into the bin. And so we can do it with food waste. It was designed originally for the chicken industry because of the high mortality rate that they have there, and they used to just bury all the dead chickens once, but we've applied the system. I think we've got about 175, 180 of these working in South Australia on chicken farms, and there's about 900 or so of them working around the world in different spots. Some of them are working well. The ones in America aren't doing too well at the moment because some states are doing terrifically and some states aren't doing that well in recycling. So this is a job that we did in Qatar, and that job started off on a campsite that had 3,000 workers, and so we lined all the bins up, and I think in the end they took about 25, 30 bins on that site. They'd bring all the food waste out each day, put it in a bin, then the next one, then the next one, then come back again, and they continually did that and then tipped the material out, left it for another 3-4 weeks on the ground. It wouldn't meet an Australian standard, but it made a really good compost, and they then put that back into agriculture. You wouldn't spread that out over the top of a lettuce or something because E. coli and Salmonella count possibly could be high, but they dug it into the ground and they've had fantastic success growing vegetables, etc., etc. So that project's now gone further, and I'll show you a little bit more about that. So we started off with 1 or 2 bins, and then we've grown it. I think there's about 50 or 60 of them working over in Qatar at the moment with July, they're talking about me going to Malaysia for a project, Holland for a project, and back to Qatar. And they want to meet with the Minister of Environment in Qatar. And what's really interesting, they actually asked us how did South Australia get so well in terms of recycling. So we actually sent them the whole document that came out of Green Industries to the Qatar government. And already some of the things are really just progressing fantastically in terms of what we've done in South Australia. Can we play this, or should I just push play? I'm pretty excited about this little video. We didn't do this video.
We have been working a lot to actually understand the materials coming into the stadium through our procurement process. So if we can control that everything is recyclable or compostable, we have a better chance at taking care of it properly at the end. What some people might not realize is that almost half of the waste coming out of a football match is actually organic waste. And during the Arab Cup, I think a total of almost 75 tons was sent to composting with Agrico.
شركة أجريكومبوست هي متخصصة في تدوير المخلفات العضوية. نعيد تدويرها وخلال 4 أسابيع تتحول هذه المواد إلى تربة صالحة للزراعة أو إلى كومبوست، وترتفع درجة الحرارة إلى ما يقارب 70 درجة. في هذه الفترة تتحلل المواد مهما كانت نوعها وتيجي على الموقع، ونكمل باقي عملية تصنيع تربة زراعية أو الكومبوست، وبعدين تدخل في التعبئة وتدخل في النظام الزراعي. جميع المواد الأولية اللي تدخل في إعادة التدوير هي كلها منتجة من المخلفات الغذائية أو المخلفات العضوية داخل الدولة في قطر.
So we had this organic waste management system in place now, both for the FIFA Club World Cup and for the FIFA Arab Cup. And we learned so much. We learned how to procure the right materials. We learned how to segregate waste, and we learned how to use the composting machines that work with the farms. From this experience, I think we're in a good position to deliver something bigger and better for the FIFA World Cup later this year.
That's exciting because FIFA did it themselves. We didn't have any role in that other than they just decided they want to do that because they're that excited about how we've achieved that. We've now just quoted them to do the whole of the FIFA Cup, both supplying composted materials in for the cup. That's beer. Budweiser is sponsoring it, so it's the beer cups, the serviettes, the whole lot of it. And then using the biobin technology to take all that material away and control it, then going back to our composting site in Qatar and then making all those products. That guy is the Qatarian guy is our partner, and he's got 120 hectares of vegetables, and he just went to Spain with the Emir because they are really concerned about food security for Qatar. And so they're looking at it, seeing how they can use all this compost back into the ground at Qatar. They can't even grow lucerne over there at the moment because the salt levels in the water have got so high. They can't grow material for their dairy, the cattle, etc., etc. So it's a pretty exciting opportunity in terms of what we've done there. So that's a windrow turner that we use in South Australia. I mean, there's some in America that probably got 10 and 15 of these in a row. The biggest composter in Australia does about 500,000-600,000 tonne a year. We're up to 250,000 tonne. It goes up and down a little bit. So how are we going for time? So I just wanted to run through a few little things here that sort of dance around a bit, but I think you might sort of see the message that I'm trying to give. Look, the EPAs around Australia are concerned about microplastics and PFAS and forever chemicals, and they should be, and I think we've all got as a community to keep working on this because there's no simple solution on these forever chemicals and PFAS and all that. However, what we don't want to do is block this recycling program that we've got in place until we've got solutions that are out there. I'm in constant contact with the US in terms of what they're doing about microplastics, forever chemicals and PFAS, etc. And there are solutions. We've got to clearly communicate it and make sure that we've got a 5, 10, 20-year plan on how we fix these things. EPA in Queensland has just decided that 1 part per billion of PFAS in your compost and you can't sell your compost anymore. We didn't create it. We don't want it. We don't want it in our compost. So it's up to us as a society to stop these things from coming into our door, because we have the potential that we can undermine every program that we're talking about doing here if we're not careful. So I can't stop talking about this enough, because I can see that this has the potential to jeopardise everything if we don't have a good communication about a 3, 5, 10, 20-year plan. So contamination is our problem. I was talking to the RMIT Melbourne Professor Andy Ball, who's found a heap of microbes that can actually break down PFOS and PFAS. However, that's in the lab. It hasn't been put out there in trials yet. I was with Mike McLaughlin from used to be with the CSIRO, now with the Wade Institute, and I said to him, what if I find PFOS in my compost? He said, look, trust me, you got it. It's there. It's in everything. One of the composters in Victoria brought in some fish waste the other day. It was like 50, 60 times over the Nephim. The fish had PFOS and that in it. So once it went into the compost, he was already over the limit, and he had the potential. So, you know, again, if you want to stop the whole composting cycle, just put up a stop sign, because we're all finished. But if we get a solution... So one of the girls that's come out to our conferences from America has shown in some of the states where they banned PFOS, the background level was right up here in women's milk, and by the time they banned it 10 years later, it's right down here. So with good policy, with good governments, with governments that agree to get these things cleaned up, we can do it. We used to have lead problems out there in the streets because we had lead in our petrol. We banned it, and there's no level, well, there's minimal lead levels out in the street these days. So with good policy, we can fix these things, but we just got to understand the priorities of that list and work together to get those things right. We've got so many wonderful things happening around Australia. In the Australian packaging covenants, they've got 1,800 companies that are signed up to redo all their packaging, to look at minimising their packaging, to look at things like PFOS and that, to make sure that they're not in their packaging, etc. It's going to take time, but you know, they've moved fantastic steps forward. And I think what drove it is mainly the China ban. It's mainly pushed these things ahead at 1,000,000 miles an hour. So that's a fantastic thing. We're doing a trial with one of the biggest nappy producers at the moment to actually recycle nappies. And I'll give you an example. In South Australia, they reckon there's about 14,000 tonne of consonant pads, nappies, etc. that go to landfill a year. Imagine how many nappies go to landfill around the world. I mean, the crisis in India with nappies at the moment is they're just throwing them in the rivers. And I was over there about 6 years ago, and I went over this river, and this bloke said, I dry reached, you know, I can handle everything. And I dry reached, and I said to the bloke, what are you going to do about cleaning this river up? He said, oh, don't worry, the monsoons will be coming through soon. I don't need to say any more about that, do I? We've got a conference in Adelaide. AORA's got a conference in Adelaide, 26th, 27th, 28th of this month. It's the best one we've ever had. We've got 175 coming. We've had to block off the people coming because we haven't got any more room. So now it's on, you can get it live streaming, which is just exciting. When we started 20 years ago for Compost Australia, and then we evolved into AORA, you know, we were lucky to get 20 at a conference. So to get 175 goes to show the interest in this space. I love and support people like ACOR, the Boomerang Alliance, the Planet Arc. I think some of those people are doing some fantastic work, and we should be supporting them wherever we can. I don't know if you know about it, but there's been a CRC being put up to the federal government on plastics, which is about seeing what they can do about minimising plastic going into the sewer system, minimise plastic, just generally looking at microbiologies that could break down the plastics in composting and other things. They're looking at changing the filters on washing machines so much shit doesn't go out of the washing machine into the sewer system, etc., and particularly microplastics and the like. They didn't get the first round, but they think they're going to have a shot at the second round, which will be really exciting. A CRC just got up for antibiotics, etc., because they're worried that all the tablets that we're taking these days that go down the sewer line could end up in the composting or the biosolids, etc., etc. So this CRC has the potential to analyse and see what we actually can break down through the microbiology within the composting process, but it's looking at up the stream, water systems, the whole lot of it. So keep an eye on that, because I think that's quite exciting. And Aora is a part of each of those CRCs, because we see that at the end of the day, we've got to try and find solutions for these problems as we go along. We're also part of the Fight Food Waste program in South Australia, which is trying to look at all waste, food waste, but see if we can push it up the value chain first before it is turned into a compost, because there's so many more value things that we can push these products, these waste streams up before they go into it. And then we're looking at how do we take a compost like our granule and push that up the value chain in terms of making better, higher performance granules and etc. I was on a hookup the other day with the federal government on the FOGO strategy for Australia. They've got some clear defined lines. Now what's going to happen after this federal election, I've got no idea at the moment. And again, I'll just finish the two last things. We've got a grant out of Greening Industries to buy an NRI machine, which will actually start to measure the carbon levels in compost to actually say how long it'll last in the soil, because we know some composts will go off in 10 years and 5 years, etc., but some will last 20 and 30 and 40 and 50 years. So we think that if we could get this right, we can actually get composters to actually measure this stuff, say to a farmer, I can supply you this compost that will last 20 years in your soil, and therefore you can register that under the carbon measurement scheme. So we think that if we get that right, again, we've linked up that project in our yard with the CSIRO. They've got a $500,000 machine, so we're going to take samples, do it in our little machine, compare it with their $500,000 machine to make sure that they're reading correctly, so that we've got some basis to work that on. And I'll finish with the importance of our market. The market is so big. It's part of education, it's part of teaching the farmers on how to use it, the benefits, because they've been so easily to ring up a fertiliser company and buy fertiliser. All their machinery is designed to spread that machinery, fertiliser, etc. So we've got to adapt and make sure that our products become better for the farmer to be able to use very easily and very efficiently. I just got a text from the boys, the sales boys that are here. They're at the fertiliser and they've got an inquiry for a massive order for the mango industry. I see that as just unbelievable. The health that we're getting out of vineyards in South Australia, the microbiology, the carbon levels, the water retention, we're getting sugar levels that skyrocket in the grapes. We did one project, it was $1 million project, they got a payback in 1 year. They moved their wine from $10 a bottle to $90 a bottle, just using compost. Thank you.